Hey, you like cars?
Welcome back. Another amazing episode is on the way. Before we start anything, you know what I gotta do. It's episode 53, CarQuicks. Let's drive right in. So, how y'all? I'm back again. This is gonna be like my little second bonus episode type thing. I get it. The schedule isn't scheduling, but it's gonna scheduling soon. But in the meantime, how's the family? How the friends? How are you feeling? How's the week been treating you? How is it going? How are the goals going? Let's just drive in. Hopefully everybody's doing well. You're doing good. You're feeling good, because I am. And I have a cool topic to talk about, right? And to get to that topic, there has been an increase of racetracks that close down in the United States, right? Whether it's in my own city of Houston, we had a drag track that closed down. And this is a story that is constantly repeated. It isn't anything new. What I'm talking about is something that threatens almost all the racetracks. There was a recent article sometime last year about the renowned and world famous Laguna Seca having to deal with noise complaints from developments that were coming near to the racetrack, even though it has been there and established since well before my time, right? Before I was born, that racetrack was there and they have been racing on it. And recently on Instagram, I had left a comment under the African American Association, Auto Association page that I follow. And they spoke about a track or an article or a video. Really, it's not really an article, it's a video that somebody spoke about. Here's a drag track. Here's a development that they're building. What can be done for the inevitable noise complaints that are going to come because they decided to put some houses acres away from a racetrack. And my first comment was, the amount of money they make from developments, whether it's the initial cost of buying the houses, the incoming property taxes that go to the city, the continual residual income that goes to the area, whether it's businesses, whether it's property owners, whether it's real estate investors. It's a constant flow of money, so much so that the idea of a racetrack is so much on the bottom barrel or the bottom rung of whatever ladder they're on that they're not even considering it. They consider it as just a bump in the road, especially if you consider thinking of this like having the audacity to just build something right on a track, right near one, knowing good and well that inevitably you're going to have the homeowners and essentially do your own fight, because they're not really paying attention to it. They might look at it and say, listen, we got cheap housing over here, the school district's good over here, and they might see the racetrack over there, but if there isn't an event happening, or if they kind of hear it in the background, they'll try to say, oh, maybe they'll get rid of it later on. And here we have a fight on our hands about a racetrack closing. And so what I wanted to talk about was what could be done, or what should be done, in order to stop the inevitable arguments and fights that people have on keeping racetracks alive. What happens when we close them down? What happens to the area around it? What business is lost? What money is lost? And ultimately, what is lost of a hobby that we are fighting against from people that think that it's just excessive waste, that it has no purpose, it has no bearing, there's nothing it's doing for the environment, for the community, and so on and so forth. I don't have the answers to any of this, right? This is just all my own opinion, my own theories. I'm just speculating about when I see these articles and I see these videos about what could be done, right? What would CarQuicks do, right? So to speak. One of the things I think that should happen, right? If we have developers coming into an area, let's just say I build a racetrack, got a drag strip right here. It's been here for 40, 50 years. Even more, everybody knows about it. It's used to host plenty of events. Plenty of people come down here. It is well known within the city. Then if a developer comes and says, I want to buy the 100 acres that is north of this track, right? Let's say it's a mile out or less, half a mile, quarter mile north of this track. Not a quarter mile, because this is around this backyard, but let's say it's a mile away from the track, but they're going to start developing a large plot of houses, right? different developments they go there. At the bare minimum, one of the mediums I said that should at least be met is that every person who is buying a house there should understand that they are buying a house that's next to a racetrack. And inevitably, when there is the Spring Nationals or when Top Fuelers or it's Friday Night Drags or whatever event is happening, you're going to hear some noise. And that noise might lend itself to be later at night because obviously, there's a lot of families that go to these new housing developments. They have children, babies, and things like that. So a lot of them look for a quiet suburban, suburbia, right? And if that's not there, that's when the complaints happen. But I think at the very least, just starting this conversation, that there should be a signed affidavit. There should be a signed document saying, I know that there is a racetrack that isn't going anywhere that's right up the road. And when there's an event, I can hear those sounds echoing over here to my neighborhood. And I'm okay with that. That's why I'm okay. I'm gonna buy the house anyways. Now, this is a double-edged sword, right? I'm speaking about this in almost a vacuum because that sounds great, right? That sounds like a perfect solution. Anybody that heard these articles or read it, many people said the same thing, saying these folks should be fined. They should have to sign something. It's real simple, right, on paper, because you would think that somebody would have the wherewithal to look around their neighborhood or their area they're buying a house and say, hey, there's a racetrack over there. Eventually it's going to get noisy. But listen, as we can see from these articles and the fight that people have to put up for this, that ain't really how they're thinking, even though they should be. But the double-edged sword about this is knowing how housing development and how they profit and how they price these houses. If they say there's a racetrack up the road and there will be inevitable noise somewhere, then they only can charge so much for the housing development. They're not going to get top dollar. It's like buying a house near a railroad. You're not going to get the highest amount of money. It's going to be a little bit less because of the inconvenience or the dangers of having a railroad cutting through your backyard. So if they say there's a racetrack over yonder and it's going to have some noise, whatever the house price was kind of comes down a little bit. The scale kind of shifts where it's like, well, it's not like we're in the rolling hills with a creek in the backyard and, some picturesque look. There's a racetrack over there. And when you think about the events and the traffic and the cars coming through, that can be a deterrent for people that want to buy a house there. And so I can see developers not wanting to even bring that up because why would they? Their ace card is to get the housing or the neighborhood to do their fight. So we're going to build a house. We're going to build a house. We're going to build a neighborhood. You're going to move in, and we're just going to sit back and watch you guys inevitably get sick of hearing the noise, even though we knew right up the road there's a racetrack, but we want you to do our fight. And that's what's happening. See, Laguna Seca and some other tracks had to have all the race cars come there and have mufflers and stuff attached so that they're not as loud, which I know. Anybody listening to this that doesn't know about that will say, why would a racetrack have sound ordinances or why would they have rules about sound? It's a race track. Well, because as the years went on, houses got closer and closer and closer to the racetrack. And what did they inevitably do? They started complaining. And these people that are buying some of these properties, especially around Laguna Seca, have a lot of money and a lot of influence because of how much their houses cost and what they're paying into. And even if it's a normal neighborhood, the same thing holds true for those. See, if they're buying into the neighborhood, they're paying the taxes, they're worrying about the school district, they're inside of the meetings. They might be on the HOA board. They might be part of the community as a police officer, maybe a EMT, maybe a nurse, a doctor. They're somewhere in the community. And if they're not advocates of motorsports, then all they hear is noise and pollution and things of that nature. And so that's one of the other fights too, right? No, if you're not into motorsports and you see a drag track, to you or to maybe others, they might just hear and see excess, right? Race fuel, the smells, you're burning tires. What about the environment? What about the whales? They're not understanding that some things are for just entertainment, right? Not everything has to have some underlining thing that it benefits the masses, right? There can be a niche group, right? Motorsports in itself is niche, but it also employs a lot of people. It sponsors a lot of people. It helps the community that those that embrace that type of motorsports. And it also brings in money into the cities that it's in. Let me give you an example. Like in Circuit of the Americas in Austin, when the F1 race comes there, everything around them benefits from the circus of the F1 coming there. Whether it's food vendors, Airbnb, real estate, the people we're talking about, local businesses, any event that's happening there, it's going to benefit from the flow of people coming in. I got the Radwood hat on right now because, it's Radwood weekend, okay? Because, I'm going to be there. And so when this car show shows up, it's a bunch of people that come to the area. So whether it's local areas, it's food trucks, it's shops, it's whatever it may be, money is coming in and businesses benefit from the flow of people coming to watch motorsports. It can be the MotoGP, it can be NASCAR, it can be F1, it can be Global Time Attack that I went to. Those events bring money into the local businesses. So even if you don't like motorsports, there's a benefit and there is an income that comes with it. But if you don't explain that to people and they just buy a house there, then they're immediately not going to like it. They're going to say, I don't like this. It's noisy. It smells. I don't, it's dangerous, Though I think that society in general, humans, everything you do doesn't have to have, like I said, some overall benefit for the masses. Motorsports and liking cars and doing things with cars is what people enjoy, what I enjoy. I don't try to justify it for the masses and say, I'm doing this because it's helping X, Y, and Z plant more trees in the Amazon. I'm doing it because I enjoy the sport of it. Same way like football and basketball, same way like outdoor, overlanding, off-roading, rock climbing, bird watching, photography, paragliders. I mean, we can go down the list of things in the world that people do just for the enjoyment of it. So with that in mind, I think one of the issues that happens is that most of the racetracks only have a very small plot of land, right? If a drag strip is straight, they got a parking lot. And then here you go with a development that comes in that says we're taking 50 acres, we're making a park, we're making a walkway, we're making a run area, we're having this, we're putting the houses, the backyards. It's a lot more space and things that they take up. So you got this small little strip right here, and then you got this massive development right next to it. One of the things they could do is think about sound barriers, which I don't know why they won't do this. Like this, besides the signing knowing you're living next to a racetrack, a sound barrier is the easiest second method. Now, not easy for cost, because I'm sure if you told a developer, in order for you to build here, you need to build a sound wall. But that's something the city comes in and does, right? The city should come in for these racetracks and say, if you want to build here, there are some rules and stipulations, right? First, you need to acknowledge the fact that there is a racetrack up there that isn't going anywhere. Similar to Cletus McFarland. He had the same battle in Florida for a racetrack he bought that was for sale, meaning somebody had built this racetrack, sold it, made profit, taxes and payments were made to the city. Folks were making money off the transaction. And they had a development come in threatening, or not threatening them, but they were trying to build right next to it. And he already knew, spearheaded it, saying, I know what's coming if they build it right there, without acknowledging the fact that I'm not going anywhere. And at least on his behalf, the city acknowledged that, saying, you guys know what you're building and that track isn't going anywhere. So if you don't want to tell your buyers, if you want to keep it a secret, that's on you. But at the very least, some cities should come and say, here's some rules: sound barrier, sound wall, the same way they do for freeways, which is hilarious, right? People live next to freeways, equally as loud, if not louder, if you could think about the constant flow of traffic that comes up and down the freeway. You think they can't complain to the city saying, hey, listen, it's kind of loud near I-10. I ain't feeling it. Hey, they're going to say, so what? We put up a sound barrier. It's like if you go to certain cities where I live, right west of, Houston, you get to an area where there will be sound barriers on the walls to help block the sound coming off the freeway. Whether it's because of the concrete they use in that one section or the speed that they're going, they put up sound barrier walls. So the same thing should apply there. Let's put up one there. Even if it's like, hey, we're going to do it for the racetrack. We're going to put up one here, large, to block the sound coming off here. And then we're also going to let the neighborhood know, like, hey, listen, there's a racetrack up there. Will this solve all the problems? Probably not, honestly, because like I've said, real estate and property development is so high profits. There's so much money in there. And motorsports, it's not. Not to say that there aren't big salaries. Like F1, you hear about how big these salaries are for like Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Like you hear these multiple $1 million salaries, but ultimately to run a racetrack or to run, let's say, a drag strip, and I use a drag strip because that's more of what you see locally, it's not cheap. Like in Houston, we had the one track by over in Baytown that closed down. Don't really know the full story on it. I think there was some speculation that the family that originally inherited it or owned it no longer really cared about doing it, or they're offered a certain amount of money from people trying to develop and build warehouses and stuff near there for the property because it was prime real estate. But we also have other tracks that are down, like more racetracks like MSR and things like that. But we don't have that many. And so when a racetrack goes away, the outlet that people had of trying to do something in some sanctioned safe event goes away. Now we're back on the streets. It's we're doing runs up Sam Houston. The Texas 2K people are out in the street. We're just running around. Or now events have to go outside of the city. So we used to host Texas 2K there all the time. People loved it there. Now this year moved to Ennis, Texas, which is kind of closer near to Dallas. So now the city of Baytown, the businesses over there, the city of Houston, you lose that income that comes in every year for such a large event. Just for, let's say, the sake of selling the property, or if it was an instance of we don't like the noise, then you lose the business as well. So this isn't like a thing that doesn't happen everywhere. We lost it because the family wanted to sell it. But what happens is now you have to find an outlet for, I want to drag race. I want to race. I want to test out my car. I want to test out products. I run a business for race car products or products for the street cars. I want to test them out. Where do I go to test them out? I no longer have a place to do it. I got to do it on the street. That's unsafe. That's putting other people at risk. And so it kind of is a snowball effect. Every time a racetrack closes, if you read the comments from people, if it's in California, if it's in Kentucky, Texas, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, wherever it may be, whenever one closes, if you scroll the comments, they'll say, and you wonder why street racing is off, taking off again. You wonder why takeovers are flooding the city. You wonder why people are racing on the highways, because there's no outlet. There's nowhere to go in order to test out your car, in order to race against your friends, to test out products. We now got to do this on the street with the public. It makes no sense. The developing part of it is they ignore the inevitable, right? And they use their power of money and their power of people buying houses, because when people buy houses, they've invested in that area. They're paying taxes on it. They're not going to back off of a racetrack. They're probably going to fight harder because they're like, listen, I don't care. I bought this house and I want that gone. And that's how that ends up happening all the time. So it's an unfortunate situation, right? The times I keep reading these articles and I see them, I read the one, like I said, on Instagram where they showed a video talking about here's the track and here's the development. What should they do? And that's what I was talking about. I was saying, listen, at least write something down. At least sign something saying we should know that there's a track over there. And the developers and the city should understand that the racetrack is there as a business. They shouldn't just let it go away or let it be fought and removed as if it's just nothing. Like, oh, it's just a little racetrack. Them kids out there having fun. Because it's not really just kids. It's grown adults, men, women, and children that come to those areas, whether to view it, whether to work, whether to represent a business. It's not just some random thing that's done for the kids. I mean, it's adults there running those race teams, running those events, hosting them, setting them up. So if the city isn't behind it, you're on a losing battle. I think any racetrack that is inside of a city or has the threat of development coming near to it needs to start off by going to the city, stating their claim about who they are, what they're doing, the things that they have done, invite them out, show them the things they're doing, the jobs that they have, and speak to them about the inevitable. If you're sitting there on a racetrack development and they're building roads and highways near you, you should just be paying attention, understanding that, hey, listen, there's an 55 or 60 acres over there for sale. They're going to sell it and they're going to put some houses over there. If they build a main road over here, like, listen, hey, you see what's about to come. They're coming over here. But they should also use it as a way to say, hey, there's a way to make some business here. Instead of putting the housing development right up on the track, how about we make that like a plaza of stores? Because if there's a racetrack here, then they probably want food and stuff. So we should put like a little market here, Target, stuff like that, little stores, eateries and things like that, restaurants, so that if there's an event there, they have a place here for business. And then now let's put the housing development further up. I mean, listen, this is so logical to me. I'm sure there's some more highly educated people that talk about, how they plot out these neighborhoods, but there should be something in between. If it's a noise thing that everybody's fighting against and worried about, then put something in between. The racetrack is business. There will be events there. And that's my thoughts on it. I mean, it's, if I had won the Powerball last month or whatever, it was $1 billion. Listen, I would have certainly been setting up to build some track in my city somewhere far. And I'd have thought about all of that. I'd have been like, how far is the next, how many acres? 80, give me all of them. Okay. Cause I don't want anybody coming near to this little setup I have. But it's something I want to talk about, something that was on my mind. It's an unfortunate thing because, like I said, motorsports, tracks, drag strips, if you're not into it, you don't see any benefit. If you don't like watching motorsports, you don't really care. And it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But there's a world there of benefit of having them there. And I think every time they close one down or whenever one comes up for sale, unfortunately, I don't have the means to buy a racetrack because if I could, I would. But they come up for sale for that reason because, one, they are hard to maintain. There isn't much of an upside to it as far as maybe the profits you make, I don't think. I think some of that might also have to deal with how they're designed and trying to modernize them for the times that we're in. Some drag strips are really just bare bones. It's like track, grandstand, front gate. Like there's nothing extra to it. I think there should be. I think when you're thinking about modern times and being in the year 2024, if you're building a drag strip, there should be something that takes into account the times we're in. It should be set up with maybe different platforms and stuff for photographers and influencers and people to have good site views for Instagram and YouTube and videos they shoot. And then there should be facilities and there should be restaurants. There should be things there that facilitate a very comfortable experience for where we're at now. There should be a spot maybe for like drone pilots that they can sit up top and FPV down the drag strip as the cars are going. It should be thought of as this is an environment that needs to showcase why we love this sport and stuff. Listen, if I win the Powerball, best believe I'm going to get it cracking. That's what I got for y'all today. Little thoughts on racetracks and housing developments and my own theories of what they should do, what they could do to help stop the inevitable fights that people have about noise complaints. I mean, it's crazy. Hey, maybe put some more double pane windows and sound deadening on them walls inside them houses so that when they shut the door, it's silent, But hey, listen, let's not get into how they build houses these days because it certainly ain't like the days of yesteryear, okay? But I'm going to be back with my normally scheduled program. There's stuff to talk about that I'll be back in episode 54. We got the Tesla Model 3 performance got announced, and I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the issues with Cybertrucks because that was a funny one. But they're gonna clear it up, and just other things that are going on. And between then, because by this weekend I'm going to go to Radwood. Going to the Radwood Auto Show. If you're listening to this and it's after that time, it happened on April 27th. If you haven't been to the Radwood Auto Show, I really don't know what you've been doing with your life. Because if you like cars, not just ones from 80s to 1999, I'm talking about just cars, just atmosphere. Just if you're my age, we in our bag. If you're younger, even then you can appreciate the nostalgia of the cars and the classicness of it and how clean they are and how good it is. And it's just a good time. So I'm going to see y'all around. As I always say, do as you wish and do as you may. Cameron Biggs, your host. It's another episode of CarQuicks. I'll see y'all around. Peace.